Hello everybody, it is the first day of autumn, so I am here feeling autumnal. It is crisp outside. I am drinking some tea out of my kitty mug. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of a wrap up of some of the books that I read this summer. I'm going to do a recent reads, talk about 6 books that I read and just need to talk about, need to discuss them. So yeah, let's jump in. So the first book I want to talk about is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. So I initially read this one in my most recent Try a Chapter video, and this is the book that won that whole, I don't think it was really a competition, but it won, and I read it basically that entire night, stayed up all night reading it, couldn't put it down. It was so good. Oh my gosh, I flew through it. I don't want to give the synopsis because I think that what makes that book so amazing is not knowing anything. Like, you go in and you just go along for the ride because it is a ride. I can tell you that the first chapter follows a man who, sort of like an average dude. He has a family, he has things that he loves about his life, things that he regrets, and in the very first chapter he is kidnapped. It is a wonderful thriller, and I definitely recommend picking it up, especially if you're in a reading slump. I think that's basically why I picked it up, because I had been in a reading slump for so long, and I picked that one up and it got me right out of that reading slump. I was so excited to read everything after that. I will say that now that I'm no longer currently reading the book, there are elements of it that I am not as big of a fan of, or I'm not as wowed by as I was in the moment, but in the moment it was an amazing, amazing read and so much fun. Kind of like, like an action movie would be. I would recommend this book along those lines. I would especially recommend this book to people who are fans of Doctor Who. Not so much thematically because they're similar, but I feel like, I don't know, there's something about the pacing and the way that things are revealed that I just feel like Whovians would really get along with this book. And also just the whole thing of absurd things are gonna happen and you are just gonna be along for it and accept it for what it is. And if you can do that, I think you'll really like this one. The next book I desperately need to discuss with people is The Power by Naomi Alderman, and oh my goodness, I think this is going to be my favorite book of this year, unless there is some amazing novel that I'll be reading in the second half of 2017, which there might be. John Green's new book is coming out, but as of right now, this book is number 1. So this one I think comes out in the US in October, but it's already out in a bunch of countries already, including the UK. So if you are not in the US, you might be able to get your hands on this one now. But the premise of this story is that it's set 50 years into our current future, and girls start developing the ability to electrocute people by touch. And so you see the power dynamics of gender sort of flip, and women become more physically powerful than men, and you see how that alters our reality, and the world sort of slowly kind of shifts. And it's so brilliantly done. It is paced like a thriller, and you read it from multiple perspectives in the story, from people all over the world. It's a page turner, really easy to get through, and the writing is very easy to get through, and very compelling and engaging. But at the same time, she brings up such interesting ideas, and you do have to kind of accept certain things, it is a satire, so she does make some jumps, and you just kind of have to go along with it, and as long as you're able to do that, you'll be fine with this book. I absolutely adored it. I'm gonna be doing a full discussion video on the book closer to its US release date, because I have so many thoughts on it, and it would take up a really long video for me to discuss them, so I'm not gonna do that in this video. But I loved this book because I feel it really it really made me question things and question myself, and it just made me think a lot about power and the way that we as a culture perceive power and think about power, because very much so it is, I think, especially from a US perspective, seen as a very physical thing. Power is physical, and I feel she brings up a lot of really interesting ideas about why that is such a toxic idea. But anyways, just read this book. It's so good. The third book I want to talk about is Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. So I originally had never heard of this book, and then I asked on Instagram for some book recommendations, and Reagan from Prue's Project said this one, so I was like, okay. So I picked this one up, and I didn't really go in with any expectations, and it totally blew me away. I had so much fun in this story. Basically, you follow, I forget the main character's name. You follow the main character, and she's in line to be executed, and she is pulled from her cell and given the option that she can continue on to be executed, or she can become the new food taster for the king, which basically means that she's like constantly tasting food for poison. And so the story follows her training to be a poison taster, to learn about all different types of poisons and things like that. I will say, and I don't mean this to sound shady, but this book gave me major Throne of Glass vibes, and it was written like almost a decade before Throne of Glass. Like I feel like a lot of the tropes in this book are just sort of YA tropes in general, but there's just a lot of similarities between this book and Throne of Glass that it's like hard to really separate them. But anyways, I just thought it was really fun. I really liked it. And it's a good replacement for Throne of Glass because I've given up on that series, to be totally honest. So the next book I read was Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee, and this book was so much fun. It is a middle grade story, I think middle grade, young YA, middle grade type of story, following this girl who lives in our world, but like post-apocalypse, and in her world, some people have developed superpowers. Some of them are kind of lame, and some of them are really intense and cool. Her parents are sort of like local superheroes. They're not like international superstar superheroes, but they're like, they're pretty popular in her town, and she has not developed powers and she desperately wants them. And so the way that I've been describing this book is that it is sort of like reminiscent of The Incredibles or Sky High, if you are familiar with Disney Channel original movies. And I just thought it was so incredibly brilliant. It's incredibly diverse. You have your main protagonist who is Asian American, although I don't know if they refer to themselves as America in this book still, but she's Asian, she's bisexual. You see a female-female romance in the story itself, which is awesome. I just had so much fun reading it, and I'm so excited for the second book in this series, which comes out pretty soon. I will say, though, that the mystery of the book I didn't think was very well done. I thought that pretty much every mystery was so obvious, and it was actually like to the point where it made me question the intelligence of some characters, that they like couldn't guess what was going on because I thought it was so obvious. So it's not a very subtle novel, but it's super, super fun, incredibly diverse, and I would recommend it. If you want like a fun superhero type of story, if you're a fan of The Incredibles, fan of Sky High, you will like this one. It is great. Then I read I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maureen Gu. And this book, guys, this book stole my heart. It is a story, it's a contemporary story following this teenage girl who every time she interacts with a guy that she's a crush on, she just fails miserably. She just something super, super embarrassing happens to her. And so she ends up getting inspired by the Korean dramas that her father is obsessed with. And she gets inspired by those to take some of the lessons from Korean dramas to implement them in her own life with the goal of getting a boyfriend. Now, this sounds ridiculous and over the top, and the story, the book is ridiculous and over the top. It very much so, if you are a fan of Korean dramas, I think you'll love this book because it basically reads like a Korean drama. It is very much so a love letter to that whole genre of storytelling, while also implementing some of those elements into the actual story itself. So when I first started reading it, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it because it was so over the top. One of the first scenes is that she's talking to this guy and her pants fall down, and I was like, this is so stupid. This doesn't happen in real life. These are those really awful, embarrassing moments that you read from the back of 17 magazine where you're these aren't real. But as I kept continuing on into it, I feel it just it clicked. I finally figured out okay, no, she's implementing things from Korean dramas into this story, and kind of subverting some of those ideas too, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, I just loved it. It's written by an Asian author, and I don't know if she's Korean, but the protagonist is Korean. I love the scenes of her and her dad. They're like my favorite scenes of them watching Korean dramas together and interacting. And then the last book I want to talk about is one that I just finished yesterday, and it is One Dark Throne by Kendare Blake. This is the sequel to Three Dark Crowns. Oh my gosh, I have been highly anticipating this book, and then I decided to just randomly request it on Edelweiss, which is like an advanced copy book requesting platform thing. I don't know how to describe it, but I requested it on there on a whim, and as soon as I got it, I was like, well, there goes all my plans, because I just need to read this book. And so I read it, and it was so good. So this is the sequel to Three Dark Crowns, which is a story set in an island, and on this island it is a matriarchal society, and they have queens instead of kings in power. But to get their queens, they basically take a group of triplets that the queen before births, and they separate them while they're still really young. Each of them goes to a different village on the island and are raised with like their special power to fight to the death the other two queens in order to get like the one queen, like the Queen Victorious. Each of the girls is sort of blessed with a different power. The first one, Mirabella, is an elementalist. Then you have Arsinoe, who is a naturalist, so she is able to control like nature, like plants and animals. And then you have Catherine, who is a poisoner, which basically means that she can ingest and is just like really adept with working with poison. In the first book, you follow each of their perspectives, and you see basically each of them is their own protagonist in their own right. And so you see each of their like little worlds that they've created, and you see how they see the other queens as like antagonists almost, and it's so good. It's so character driven. It's a very slow burning fantasy story, so it's not like a ton of action all at once, but I love the characters. I had so much fun reading that first book. I loved all the ideas in it. So yeah, adored the first book. So I was so excited to get to the second one. I don't want to say what the second one's about because it kind of spoils the first one, but it takes off right after the first book, and it does not disappoint. I loved it. I think my only critique is that I do kind of wish that there was like a bit more world building. Like, I would take a longer story for a deeper world. But overall, I had just as much fun reading this book. I cared just as much for all the characters. Although I will say that there are a lot of characters, because you basically have 3 protagonists that you're following. So you have each of the protagonists plus their like entourage of people and all of their like individual politics, along with like the overarching politics of the world. So it's a lot to remember, and sometimes like someone will come into the story and I'm like, I know that I met you at one point, but I have no idea who you are, but I'm just gonna hope it's not super important. So yeah, you just kind of had to accept that. I kind of wish that there was like a glossary of characters or something in the back of the book, but maybe in the third book. Originally, I think this was supposed to be a duology, but from my understanding, it is expanding, I think, to 4 books. I'm not really sure how many are in total going to be in the series. Do not look up the title of the third book though. Don't do it. It is, I don't know if it's the actual title or if someone just put it on Goodreads, but it is a total spoiler. Don't look up the title. I hope that isn't the title. And I'm just really sad because now I have to wait so long for the next book. I want it now. Alright, so my foot is falling asleep, so that tells me that this video is now complete. That rhymed. Let me know if you've read any of these in the comments down below. I would love to discuss them with you, or just let me know what books you've recently read that you've loved, because I'm always looking for new book recommendations, but please, no spoilers. And yeah, if you like this video, be sure to give it a like, and if you want to see new videos from me every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, you can subscribe, and I'll talk to y'all next time. Bye!